The story of Cockroach is about a couple that probably experienced the worst luck possible in that the groom is actually killed on their wedding day.
He's reincarnated as a cockroach and has to try and win back his bride. Yeah.
It's kind of, you know, it's quite sentimental, and I'm a bit of a sentimental girl, so I kind of that worked with me. I kind of thought, oh, it's a good idea, and it is dealing with a fairly dark subject, but yeah, keeping it light and keeping it kind of humorous at the same time, and I think that's really clever.
You kind of have empathy for a cockroach at the end, which is very rare, especially in Sydney.
You sort of start with an idea and it's in your head, and then yeah, and then watching it through a director and then through the actors becoming something entirely unique, I guess, because it's not just what you wrote, it's not just what the director's sort of thinking, and it's not just what the actor's doing, it's this whole collaboration where the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. It's kind of magical.
His name is Charlie, and he is on his wedding day marrying his beautiful wife, and he gets run over by the wedding car. It reverses into him and crushes his legs, and he has a horrific head injury and dies. He's a bit accident prone anyway, so this kind of makes sense that something like this would happen to him. It doesn't surprise anybody. Maybe not this drastic, but it's no surprise to anyone.
Sarah, well, she's widowed by Charlie, her husband, on their wedding day, and comes home and kind of is grieving, and I guess Charlie reincarnates into a cockroach and lives with her, which she's quite disturbed by. But yeah, it's just sort of that process of trauma and grieving and all that sort of thing.
It's hard to sort of play him as a cockroach. I think I've got to just play him as a guy who loves his girlfriend and thinks that they can make it work, even though he's in this strange form, but that doesn't matter because I'm still me.
And I always felt like in order to really tell the story properly, it would be, you know, we really needed to create like a 3D or a CGI cockroach. The process was then getting on board a post house who could achieve the sheer volume of shots that we needed to pull off. And we were lucky enough to get on board Postmodern to be our post-production partner. And so we've approached it now that, you know, we've enabled ourselves to be able to kind of create Charlie as a 3D cockroach, which appears in live action plates that we shoot on location over a 4-day shoot.
We chose to shoot on the red camera because mainly because there's so many visual effects in the film, so to be able to shoot at 4K and then give the post guys the option to sort of move around in the frame or blow up, or, you know, just give them that sort of resolution that they're able to do that is a really good option.
I did a lot of pre with Nicola Daly, who I've worked with a lot before, so we sort of have a really quick sort of, you know, unique understanding of what, you know, each other wants from the project, and so that was great. We sat down a lot and talked about tone and mood and how we wanted the film to look, and then we involved Postmodern in those conversations as well about, you know, if the location we choose or the lighting we choose is too dark, you know, is that going to make it difficult for them?
We talked about cockroaches living in the dark, and also she was going through a grieving process, so we sort of started off the film is quite moody and dark because that's a natural environment for the cockroach, and she's also grieving, so it makes sense for her story. And then if you watch the film as it goes along, it becomes lighter because she's sort of shedding that grief, and also he, you know, comes to a point of demise at the end to get Charlie's perspective of the world, because we're trying to make everything look big, like the kettle and the biscuits. We used a periscope lens which enables you to get really low to a surface, so we'd often rig the camera sort of vertically, and then the periscope lens is sort of a mirror relay system, so it goes like that and it enables the lens to get right down on the kitchen bench, for example, in the kitchen scene when you first see him and he's sort of running along the bench. The shot at the beginning where he's dead and then we sort of crane up away from him is his soul leaving his body, and then you sort of go into the title sequence.
Initially in the script there was I guess there was a scene which basically depicted Charlie's transformation from a human to a cockroach. And we were trying to think of a way in which to do that sort of visually without doing the sort of standard, you know, rising up into the sky and seeing white, or sort of travelling through space and seeing stars rush past or whatever. And so we were having a bit of a meeting, and the idea sort of came up from Mark Barrell, the production designer. He felt like we could try and do something really organic. And that word instantly kind of triggered something in me, because I really felt like, you know, in a sense, that's what it is. It's, you know, it's a transference of energy. It is like an organic thing. So when we sort of rise up from Charlie's dead body, it goes from like a gaseous state, then it's kind of all very liquidy, and then it forms a solid in the form of actually Charlie as a cockroach.
We had a big sort of glass tank which we filled with water, and then we just chucked we had a camera and a macro lens pointing into it, and then we just chucked a whole bunch of different liquids and milk, and just filmed in different speeds and slow-mo, that the sort of changing, whether it be gas or liquid or honey. We threw honey in there, I think golden syrup, and then actually that morning I'd found a cockroach on the pavement outside my house, dead one, which I picked up and put in a container, and then took it and we chucked him in the tank with all the liquid, and it actually appears in the film now, that this sort of cockroach body rising from the goo. And then Postmodern layered it all and did a lot of After Effects work on it, which looks fantastic, and coloured it all, and it, yeah, it's what you see in the film now.
On set, my role was supervisor for all the visual effects that were going to occur. So basically my role was to make sure that we filmed all the scenes correctly, to make sure that everything was right when it came back to post. I had a big glass chrome ball and a grey ball, and that was used to sample the lighting information from set. So that means that we could grab that ball, take photos of it, grab that ball later on in post and match the on-set lighting with our cockroach. So we sat into the plate realistically.
If only you could see that it's me.
So the first stage was the design process. And so we sat down with Luke, the director, and did some sketches and things like that. And then from there it went into 3D, where we started building up those sketches into a 3D model. And then from that it went into texturing, where we started painting up the colours and things like that. And then into animation. And then from animation went into lighting and rendering. We wanted it to look fairly realistic, obviously, to sit in with the live action plates. But we also wanted him to look a little bit cartoonish, just so we could read his face, read his emotions, because a realistic cockroach doesn't really have eyes or pupils or eyebrows or a mouth really that could talk. So yeah, we had to sort of get the realism and push it down a little bit more towards a cartoonish route, just so we could emphasise, you know, just read his emotions and things like that.
Ah, crap. Sarah. Where is everybody? Sarah? I'm starving.
Oh, crap. Sarah. Sarah. Oh, baby. Sarah. Hey, Sarah. Sarah, I'm down here. Honey, I'm a cock. Whoa. Sarah, it's me. Sarah. Whoa. Wait, honey. Oh, it's me. Honey, I'm down here. It's Charlie. Charlie. Sarah.
Sarah, honey, please, it's me, it's Charlie.
Some of the main challenges of animating Charlie was that, well, naturally he's a cockroach, but we didn't want him walking around on all 6 legs all the time. We wanted him to be more humanistic and walk around on 2 legs. So the main challenge was getting him to walk on 6 plus walk on 2 at the same time. So getting that conversion, that change, that was the hardest bit, I think.
We actually had, I think it was about 4 stages of the edit. We sort of locked it off without Charlie in, then gave it to them, then we had a rough Charlie, then we tweaked the edit again, then gave it back, and so it's been a bit of back and forth. Mainly because whenever Charlie came back in, he had different expressions, or he moved in a particular way, or moved across frame quicker than we thought he might, or slower in some cases. It needed a bit of tweaking, so it was sort of a funny edit in that it was, rather than taking sort of, a couple of weeks for a traditional short, in a sense it's taken about 5 months, so just because of that back and forth. It's quite an emotional film, quite dramatic, and I really wanted to steer clear, I guess, of strings for some reason. I felt like we could get across Charlie's emotions without sort of going down that traditional route.
It was mainly Pete's idea to use the tuba and brass instruments, which I wasn't quite sure about at first because I've never really sort of come across that before. But at first I didn't quite like it, but as it evolved and the different versions came through, it turned out to be quite good, and it's totally grown on me, and I really like it now. So it's a little bit unusual, but so is the film, so that's why I think it works.
And the tuba's able to get some really low notes and can evoke real sadness. And so he's devised an entire score around, I guess, the tuba, and then he's introduced a trumpet and a trombone, so it's completely a brass score. Which early on I was not 100% sure about, but I've got to say it's really sort of come together, and like with every edit, it just keeps getting layered, and so now it feels really rich and really evocative with just the use of 3 instruments.
I was hoping that I could maybe have, work on a cockroach voice, try and have like a little kind of character voice, but that's not going to happen.
How does a cockroach vocalise, in the bit where he's vocalising back up to Sarah? And that was something that we were stuck on for quite a while. And we ended up using a little bit thing that went like this. So that's what you're hearing there, but we ended up today pitch shifting it up 8 semitones, so it sounds a bit higher. And that's how the cockroach is talking. The Foley movements, we've got broken up eggshells, and well, I can demonstrate here. We've got, there's a layer of just that for his movements. That's how he's walking around there. And there's a layer of, I'll pick up a handful of broken up eggshells and crunch them up on my hand as he's walking around. So that's mainly what we ended up using for the cockroach Foley. But there's also, we're experimenting around with chewing on an apple. And some of the earlier ones, at the beginning of the film, we wanted to sound a little bit more grosser, a bit more yucko. But at the end, we want him to sound, we want the audience to like him, so we don't want him to sound so gross at the end. So at the beginning, there's a couple of extra layers in there of me chewing on an apple, just and that's a bit of gross yuckiness that when we first see him, we chucked in as well.
Pretty early on, we tried to get Damon back in to replace my horrible voice with his lovely, charming one. And then that really helped as well because, obviously being an actor, he brought a lot more to it. So then that allowed the guys to actually go off and use his voice for animation purposes as well.
We recorded Damon's voice, and at the same time we filmed him speaking his lines. So we used that video footage as reference when animating the cockroach's face, so we could make sure that his lips and expressions matched Damon's exactly.
We've been together for 6 years. I asked you to marry me on the pier where you grew up. We got married just 2 months ago. I know this isn't what we planned, honey, but our love can transcend this. We belong together.
We're at the stage now where, now that the edit's all locked off and all the CGI is locked off, we're going to get Damon in for a final pass. As again, things sort of came up in the process of animating Charlie that called for extra little bits of sound or extra little bits of expression from him that we didn't get the first time.
This process was just about me trying to add some more life and flavour to Charlie. Little details, little sound effects when he's running, little sort of breathing noises, just adding little detail things that
It's a very different process because you're not normally, that all comes with just acting, whereas when it's animated you're sort of putting it all together. It's a very different process.
Honey! No! No, honey, no!
Yeah, the premiere was amazing. Like, you know, I guess when you're making a film, that's the thing that you sort of, you're making it for the movie to be seen by an audience. So we had, you know, we had about 300 people rock up to the Chevelle in Paddington in Sydney, and had a great response to the film. It was a really great, fun night. It was a little bit sort of stressful getting it to that period. I thought we'd given ourselves plenty of time to get the film ready, but as it turned out, literally I'd seen a finished film with 5.1 sound literally half an hour before the screening.
Yeah, I think the audiences will definitely be able to engage with Charlie. That was our main purpose. You know, that's what we tried to achieve with the design and the animation, was to try and get the audience to relate to him, yeah.
The work that they've done on Charlie, the cockroach, is just fantastic. Like, just all that light reflecting on him, and he's slightly translucent, and the work that they've done is just, yeah, it looks amazing.
It looks totally real, especially the mannerisms and there's a couple of bits where he's just sort of on one leg, about to fall off, or just the running or the flying, how the wings sort of flutter. Like, the detail is astonishing. It
was actually a real dream project. It was a long project, and it did take a lot out of me, I guess, to get it to the completion date. But looking back on it, it was possibly the best thing I could have ever done.